Neanderthals are an extinct group of archaic humans that appeared around 400,000 years ago. As our closest known relatives, they not only shared a complex history with Homo sapiens, but also interbred with them, leaving traces of their DNA in modern humans. Here, we look at the fundamental questions about who Neanderthals were, what they ate, when they mated with humans, and what life was like for this lost human lineage. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals last shared a common ancestor between 600,000 and 800,000 years ago, although the exact timing of this evolutionary split is still debated. Neanderthals emerged as a distinct population between 400,000 and 350,000 years ago. They were closely related to another extinct group of archaic humans, known as Denisovans. DNA analysis from a pre-Neanderthal population found that the Cima de los Huesos site in Spain, known as the Pit of the Bones, revealed that Neanderthals and Denisovans diverged from each other more than 430,000 years ago. Neanderthals' core range was in Western Eurasia. They lived as far west as what is now Wales and as far east as the Altai Mountains in Siberia. They also lived around the Mediterranean as far south as Israel and reached across from what is now Iran to Uzbekistan, in the plains of Central Asia. During the hundreds of thousands of years of existence, Neanderthals experienced global climate changes ranging from ice ages to warm periods even slightly hotter than those seen today. Neanderthals thrived in steppe or warm forests, and their power sprint anatomy may have helped them hunt in woodlands. Research published in 2001 found that Neanderthals living in a forested lake basin in modern-day Germany around 123,000 years ago may have altered the landscape by burning or clearing vegetation. What did Neanderthals look like? Neanderthals had a long, low skull compared to the more globular skull of modern humans, with a characteristic prominent brow ridge above their eyes. Their face was also distinctive. The central part of the face protruded forward and was dominated by a very big, white nose. Some scientists think this feature may have been an adaptation to living in colder, drier environments. The large internal volume of the nose would have acted to moisten and warm the air they breathed. Their front teeth were large, and scratch marks show they were regularly used like a third hand when preparing food and other materials. Unlike modern humans, Neanderthals didn't have much of a chin. Neanderthals had strong muscular bodies and wide hips and shoulders. Adults grew to about 1.5 to 1.75 meters, or 4.9 to 4.74 feet tall, and weighed about 64 to 82 kilograms, or 141 to 180 pounds. Early Neanderthals were taller on average than later Neanderthals, but their weight was about the same. Their short, stocky physiques were suited to cold environments. The bulky trunk, in addition to their short lower leg and lower arm bones, gave Neanderthals proportions that would have minimized the skin's surface area, presumably to conserve heat under the predominantly colder conditions of the last 200,000 years. Some researchers argue that this physique also gave the Neanderthals greater power in their arms and legs for close-range ambushes during hunting. Masters of the hunt. Neanderthals were once thought of as scavengers, but are now considered to have been apex predators. Neanderthals were skilled hunters. Many archaeological sites show their ability to kill large mammals like bison, horse, and red deer. They occasionally killed mammoths or rhinoceros. This could not have been easy, since we have not found evidence that the Neanderthals used arrows, atlatls, or other distance-killing weapons invented by more recent people. In the face of these apparent technological limitations, they still got more than half their nutritional input from meat. In 1971, archaeologists in La Borda, France, excavated bones from over 40 aurochs, a species of large wild cattle that went extinct in the 17th century. In a detailed 1990 monograph, Jacques Joubert and colleagues described the site as a natural depression formed by a collapsed cave, known as an avon, at the base of a sloping hill. The remains revealed that over half of the aurochs were juveniles, with most adults being cows and few or no bulls. Based on modern cattle behavior, researchers suggested that aurochs likely formed herds of cows with calves, separate from bull groups. Joubert and his team proposed that Neanderthals specifically targeted these cow-calf herds, driving them into the natural trap of the Avon, where escape was challenging. Successfully herding wild, skittish animals repeatedly into a confined space would have required expert knowledge of their behavior. White and colleagues suggested that Neanderthal hunters likely used a coordinated strategy. By approaching at an angle toward the front of the herd, they could prompt animals just behind the leader to react, thereby narrowing the group and pushing the lead animals forward. Working in unison, the hunters could steer and accelerate the herd across open terrain, guiding them directly into the trap. Pinned against the cliff. The site of Moron, France, represents the accumulated remains of more than 130 bison, killed over an unknown span of time. The kill site was flanked by a limestone rock face abutted by marshy land that enabled Neanderthal hunters to corner groups of bison where it was hard to escape. At this site, 80% of the bison bones come from juvenile or adult female individuals. The site of Taubach, Germany, illustrates a different hunting situation. Here, rhinoceros came to wallow and drink at warm springs. Neanderthals lay in wait under cover of natural brush, where they could watch rhino mothers and calves. Only when a calf wandered far enough from its mother did the hunters strike. This series of events explains why 40 out of a minimum 76 rhinoceros individuals were juveniles between 1 and 1.5 years of age. The faunal remains of Taubach date to the last interglacial, around 120,000 years ago. Bodil Brundtland documented the rhinoceros bones in a 1999 monograph, showing that cut marks from muscle and tendon removal occur on every body part, a sign that the Neanderthals had control of the kill site for plenty of time before carnivores could ravage the remains. Hominins are not the only predators that cooperate and use landscapes to their advantage. Carnivores like lions or wolves also hunt in ways that make use of natural cover and barriers in the landscape. Several individuals within a hunting group sometimes coordinate their actions, one or two driving the animals to flight and others lying in wait to surprise and bring down the fleeing prey. Wolves often work together to separate one prey animal from a herd, pursuing their quarry to exhaustion. Neanderthals would have been aware of these other predators' strategies. They may even have gotten ideas by watching hunts from a distance. But many of the strategies that worked for lions or wolves could not have worked well for Neanderthals, who could not match the speed of the four-legged carnivores. Where they lacked in speed, Neanderthals surpassed other hunters in coordinated planning. Several individuals had to commit to a shared strategy and carry out their parts, often out of sight or hearing of each other. They relied upon knowledge of prey animals' social behavior to move them into prepared killing zones, in some cases without driving them to flight until the last minute. Some of the Neanderthal hunting strategies would work with only one individual driving a group of animals. But the Laborde situation is an example where moving prey into the right position would have taken at least 2 or 3 hunters. In every one of these sites, several hunters would have been waiting quietly in the kill zone, maybe for a long time, before rushing to stab spears at close quarters into frightened, frenzied prey animals. Hair and color. Neanderthals were well adapted to their environment, and their body hair and skin color played a significant role in these adaptations. The presence of body hair would have provided insulation against the cold climates of Europe and Asia, where Neanderthals predominantly lived. This adaptation was crucial for thermoregulation, helping them maintain body heat in frigid conditions. Additionally, the density and distribution of body hair might have varied among populations, reflecting adaptations to different environmental pressures. Genetic evidence has shed light on the pigmentation of Neanderthals, particularly through the study of the MC1R gene, which is associated with skin and hair color. Variations in this gene suggest that Neanderthals may have had a range of skin tones, possibly lighter than those of their African ancestors, which would have been advantageous in northern latitudes with lower UV radiation. This adaptation would have facilitated the synthesis of vitamin D in environments with a limited sunlight exposure. Neanderthals appear to have had different hair colors, including shades of brown, red, and possibly black. Specific mutations in the MC1R gene linked to red hair in modern humans have been found in some Neanderthal remains, indicating that at least some Neanderthals may have had reddish hair. Evidence of eye color among Neanderthals is limited, but there is some indication that they may have had a range, potentially including lighter colors like hazel or green. Variability in eye color among Neanderthals is suggested by genes like OCA2 and HERC2, which influence eye pigmentation in humans. Neanderthals had bigger brains. The average Neanderthal brain case measured approximately 1,640 centimeters cubed, or 100 cubic inches, for males, and 1,460 centimeters cubed, or 89 cubic inches for females, notably larger than modern human averages. For instance, present-day European males average around 1,362 centimeter cubed, or 83.1 cubic inches, while females average 1,201 centimeters cubed, or 73.3 cubic inches. Analysis of 28 modern human skulls, dating from 190,000 to 25,000 years ago, showed an average brain size of about 1,478 centimeters cubed, or 90.2 cubic inches, suggesting a slight reduction in brain size in modern humans since the Upper Paleolithic. The largest Neanderthal brain, belonging to the individual known as Amud 1, was measured at 1,736 centimeters cubed, or 105.9 cubic inches, one of the largest recorded in hominid fossils. The Neanderthal brain case was elongated and less rounded than that of modern humans, with a shape that reflects a different neural organization. While modern human brains have more globular shapes, indicating expanded parietal and cerebellar regions, which are associated with complex thought and language, Neanderthal brains had a more elongated form, possibly affecting specific cognitive functions. Neanderthals had relatively larger areas of the brain dedicated to visual and motor processing. This could have been an adaptation to the often low-light environments of Ice Age Europe and to their physically demanding lifestyles. As a result, other areas associated with social cognition and complex problem-solving may have been less developed compared to modern humans. Stronger muscles need more calories. Maximum natural lifespan and the timing of adulthood, menopause, and gestation were most likely very similar to modern humans. However, it has been hypothesized, based on the growth rates of teeth and tooth enamel, that Neanderthals matured faster than modern humans, although this is not backed up by age biomarkers. The main differences in maturation are the atlas bone in the neck, as well as the middle thoracic vertebrae fused about 2 years later in Neanderthals than in modern humans. But this was more likely caused by a difference in anatomy rather than growth rate. Models on Neanderthal caloric requirements report significantly higher intake than those of modern humans, because they typically assume Neanderthals had higher basal metabolic rates due to higher muscle mass, faster growth rate, and greater body heat production against the cold and higher daily physical activity levels due to greater daily traveling distances while foraging. However, American archaeologist Brian Hockett estimated that a pregnant Neanderthal would have consumed 5,500 calories per day, which would have necessitated a heavy reliance on big game meat. Such a diet would have caused numerous deficiencies or nutrient poisonings, so he concluded that these are poorly warranted assumptions to make. Neanderthals may have been more active during dimmer light conditions rather than broad daylight, because they lived in regions with reduced daytime hours in the winter, hunted large game, such predators typically hunt at night to enhance ambush tactics, and had large eyes and visual processing neural centers. Genetically, color blindness, which may enhance mesopic vision, is typically correlated with northern latitude populations, and the Neanderthals from Vindica Cave, Croatia, had some substitutions in their opsin genes, which could have influenced color vision. However, the functional implications of these substitutions are inconclusive. Pathology. Neanderthals experienced high rates of traumatic injuries, with an estimated 79 to 94% of specimens showing signs of healed major trauma. Among these, 37 to 52% were severely injured, and 13 to 19% sustained trauma before reaching adulthood. One notable example is Neanderthal 1, who suffered an amputation of the right arm, possibly from a non-healed fracture in adolescence, along with additional issues: osteomyelitis, bone infection on the left clavicle, abnormal gait, impaired vision in the left eye, and probable hearing loss, possibly from swimmer's ear. In 1995, researcher Eric Trinkhaus estimated that about 80% of Neanderthals died before age 40 due to these injuries, proposing the rodeo rider hypothesis, which suggested a high-risk hunting strategy. However, studies of cranial trauma show no significant differences between Neanderthals and contemporary Middle Paleolithic humans, though Neanderthals may have faced a higher mortality risk overall. Few specimens of either Upper Paleolithic humans or Neanderthals reached ages over 40, and they display similar injury patterns. By 2012, Trinkhaus concluded that Neanderthals likely sustained injuries similar to those of modern humans, possibly from interpersonal violence. A 2016 study of 124 Neanderthal specimens proposed that many injuries resulted from animal attacks, with 36% attributed to bear attacks, 21% to big cat attacks, and 17% to wolves. Although no specific evidence of hyena attacks was found, hyenas also likely attacked Neanderthals opportunistically. High rates of predation likely arose from frequent confrontations over food sources and cave habitats, as well as Neanderthals' attempts to hunt these predators. The relatively low genetic diversity among Neanderthals suggests inbreeding within small populations, likely reducing their ability to eliminate harmful mutations and increasing the risk of inbreeding depression. While the specific impact on individual Neanderthals' genetic burden is unknown, inbreeding likely contributed to a higher rate of birth defects compared to modern humans. For example, the 13 Neanderthal individuals found in Sidron Cave collectively displayed 17 different birth defects, likely from inbreeding or recessive genetic disorders. Some older Neanderthals show signs of age-related conditions. Le Chapelle-Sas-1, likely in his 60s or 70s, exhibited spinal issues associated with Barstrup's disease and osteoarthritis. Neanderthal 1, who likely died around age 30 to 40, was diagnosed with diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis, a degenerative disease that could restrict movement, potentially indicating a relatively high rate of degenerative conditions among older Neanderthals. Modern humans likely transmitted diseases to them. One possible example is Helicobacter pylori, the stomach bacterium, which may have spread from modern humans to Neanderthals. Additionally, the modern human papillomavirus variant 16A may have origins linked to Neanderthal genetic introgression. Evidence of a gastrointestinal infection from Enterocytozoon bianusi has been identified in a Neanderthal individual at Cueva del Tirón, Spain. Lesions found on the leg bones of the Laforaceae 1 Neanderthal, discovered in France, suggests periostitis, an inflammation of bone tissue likely resulting from hypertrophic osteoarthropathy, a condition often caused by chronic chest infections or lung cancer. Interestingly, Neanderthals seem to have experienced fewer dental cavities than modern humans, despite some groups consuming high amounts of cavity-causing food. This may indicate a relative absence of the cavity-causing oral bacterium Streptococcus mutans in their populations, in addition to Neanderthal children from Paris, France, dating back approximately 250,000 years, show the earliest known cases of lead exposure in any hominin. They appear to have been exposed on two separate occasions, possibly from consuming contaminated food or water, or inhaling smoke containing lead particles from a fire. Group dynamics. Neanderthals lived in small, dispersed groups, typically around 10 to 30 individuals, resembling the size of modern hunter-gatherer bands. Evidence from Cueva del Cirón in Spain shows a mix of adults, adolescents, and children, while footprints in La Rochelle in France suggest groups composed mostly of juveniles and adolescents. Studies indicate that Neanderthal children were weaned by about 2.5 years, similar to modern hunter-gatherers, and seasonal stress may have impacted their growth. Physical evidence suggests that both boys and girls started working early, with hunting roles likely beginning in adolescence. Their bone trauma, comparable to that seen in modern Inuit populations, indicates that their lifestyles shared similarities with early humans, including facing seasonal resource shortages. Many Neanderthal groups moved seasonally between cave sites, with evidence of long-term occupation at some locations. They often chose caves with southern-facing entrances and competed with cave bears for shelter until around 50,000 years ago. Neanderthals also used open-air sites like Ain Kashish in Israel and Moldova 1 in Ukraine, likely for hunting and butchering rather than primary habitation. In 2022, the first known Neanderthal family, 6 adults and 5 children, was discovered in Chagirskaya Cave in Russia, indicating they likely died together, possibly due to starvation. Genetic markers suggest Neanderthals may have practiced polygamy, a trait seen in other primates with similar social structures. Social hierarchy. It is sometimes suggested that since they were hunters of challenging big game and lived in small groups, there was no sexual division of labor as seen in modern hunter-gatherer societies. However, with modern hunter-gatherers, the higher the meat dependency, the higher the division of labor. Further, tooth-wearing patterns in Neanderthal men-women suggest they commonly used their teeth for carrying items, but men exhibit more wearing on the upper teeth and women the lower, suggesting some cultural differences in tasks. It is controversially proposed that some Neanderthals wore decorative clothing or jewelry, such as a leopard skin or raptor feathers, to display elevated status in the group. Eric Drinkhouse suggested that elderly Neanderthals were given special burial rites for lasting so long, given the high mortality rates. Alternatively, many more Neanderthals may have received burials, but the graves were infiltrated and destroyed by bears. Given that 20 graves of Neanderthals underaged 4 have been found, over a third of all known graves, deceased children may have received greater care during burial than other age demographics. Examining Neanderthal skeletons from rock shelter sites, anthropologist Eric Drinkhouse noted that although many Neanderthals displayed trauma-related injuries, none showed debilitating leg trauma that would have hindered mobility. He proposed that Neanderthal self-worth was closely tied to contributing food to the group. Therefore, an individual with a severe, incapacitating injury would lose this sense of worth and likely face a rapid decline. Those unable to keep up with the group's movements from cave to cave may have been left behind. However, there is also evidence that Neanderthals cared for group members with significant injuries for extended periods, demonstrating an altruistic approach that extends even to vulnerable individuals. This caregiving behavior may have originated even earlier with Homo heidelbergensis and could suggest that such community support played a key role in the survival and resilience of Neanderthals, despite their harsh environments and high injury rates. Neanderthal toolmaking techniques. Neanderthals primarily used stone, bone, and antler as raw materials for their tools. The selection of stone was crucial, as different types of stone offered varying levels of durability and sharpness. Flint was a popular choice due to its ability to be easily shaped and its sharp edges when fractured. Other stones like chert and quartzite were also used depending on their availability in the region. In addition to stone, Neanderthals utilized bones and antlers, which were often byproducts of their hunting activities. These materials were used to create tools that required a different set of properties, such as flexibility or resilience. Bone and antler tools were often used for tasks that required a softer touch or for creating composite tools. Neanderthal toolmaking was a complex process that involved advanced techniques. One common method was flint knapping, where stones were struck to produce sharp flakes. This technique required considerable precision, as the angle and force of each strike impacted the quality of the flake. Neanderthals had a deep understanding of stone manipulation to create tools with specific shapes. Toolmaking skills were passed through generations, essential for community survival. Learning by observation was key, with younger Neanderthals watching experienced toolmakers and gradually mastering the craft through imitation and practice. Hands-on experience in an apprentice-like system was crucial for young Neanderthals to develop these skills. Common tools included scrapers and knives. Scrapers with broad, flat edges were primarily used to process animal hides, preparing them for clothing or shelter. Burin tools with pointed edges were used for engraving and carving, allowing for precise incisions on materials like bone or wood. The presence of burin tools suggests that Neanderthals engaged in tasks requiring fine motor skills and attention to detail. Organic tools. In France and Spain, the Châtel-Perronian industry may indicate Neanderthals adopted toolmaking techniques from early modern humans, crafting bone tools and ornaments. They also used animal bones for specific tools, such as lissoirs or smoothers, made from rib bones of deer, aurochs, and bison, which were used to process animal hides. Coastal Neanderthals in Italy and Greece made scrapers from durable clamshells, some of which they gathered alive by wading or diving. In Italy, they also collected volcanic pumice, likely for polishing tools, combining these materials with shell tools in some cases. At Abri du Maras in France, twisted fibers and a 3-ply cord fragment hinted Neanderthal knowledge of cordage making, suggesting basic weaving skills. This technology could have enabled them to make baskets, nets, and clothing, although organic materials rarely survive in the archaeological record. At the Poggetti Vecchi site in Italy, Neanderthals used fire to shape boxwood branches into digging sticks, and the Scharningen spears from Germany, dating back 300,000 years, show they crafted wooden spears specifically selecting spruce or pine for durability. Fire. Many Mousterian sites show evidence of fire use, though it remains unclear if Neanderthals could create fire independently or relied on flames from natural wildfires. Some indirect signs of fire-starting abilities include traces of pyrite on bifaces in late Mousterian northwestern France around 50,000 years ago, possibly used as fire-starting tools, and the collection of manganese dioxide by late Neanderthals to lower the combustion temperature of wood. Neanderthals also organized their living spaces, setting specific zones for activities like napping, butchering, maintaining hearths, and storing wood. However, evidence for such organized activity is sometimes missing, likely due to natural erosion over millennia or post-occupation disturbances like bear habitation. In several caves, hearths appear to have been strategically placed with air circulation in mind. In Abric Romani, Spain, 8 evenly spaced hearths line the rock wall, suggesting they were used to stay warm while sleeping, with one person on each side of the fire. At Cueva de Bolomor, Spain, hearths along the wall directed smoke upward and out of the cave. In Grotte du Lazaret, France, winter occupancy is suggested by natural ventilation caused by warmer interior air rising to meet colder outdoor temperatures. Clothes. Braving the cold weather in northern Europe required Neanderthals to have robust bodies and a facility for making fire. But did they wear clothes? Indirect evidence suggests that Neanderthals living in cold regions almost certainly dressed themselves head to toe in leather and furs. However, we've never actually found Neanderthal clothing or clothing remnants. Neanderthals lived as far north as Siberia. Their broad chests, noses, shoulders, and pelvises, as well as their short limbs, let them conserve body heat in the frigid climates where they lived. Although evidence of ancient clothing exists from later, anatomically modern humans, such as the leather outfit of 5,000-year-old Otzi the Iceman, no one has found similar evidence at Neanderthal sites. But there is circumstantial evidence. A stone scraper from the site of Neumark Nord in Germany has a small amount of residue on it, which likely got stuck during hide processing 200,000 years ago. The residue contained acid from oak bark, which can be used to tan or preserve animal skins. Whether this residue was from making clothing or fur bed covers, however, is unclear. Stone and bone awls, pointed tools from a late Neanderthal site in central France, also suggest these ancient people crafted tools specifically to attach hides together for clothing or shelter. The genetics of head and body lice shows that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens diverged somewhere between 170,000 and 72,000 years ago, and the one kind of body lice was reintroduced to Homo sapiens from another ancient human population, possibly Neanderthals, 100,000 years ago. Because body lice live on clothing, this suggests our ancestors began wearing clothing sometime before that. The front teeth of essentially all Neanderthals are worn down far more than their back teeth, which means they used their mouths to hold and manipulate objects, not just to eat. This dental wear in Neanderthals is similar to that of contemporary Inuit people, who use their teeth to soften animal hides to make clothing. The oldest direct evidence of Neanderthal fiber technology is a 3-ply cord fragment stuck in a stone tool from a site in southeastern France that dates to between 41,000 and 52,000 years ago. Although cords and ropes can be used to create nets, baskets, and snares, they can also be turned into shoes and fabric. Could Neanderthals talk? It remains unclear whether Neanderthals possessed advanced language abilities, though some researchers suggest that a complex form of communication, possibly using syntax, was essential for survival in their challenging environments. Neanderthals would have needed to convey information about resource locations, hunting, gathering, and toolmaking techniques. While they carried the FOXP2 gene linked to speech and language in humans, they lacked the specific variant found in modern humans. Neanderthals had an expanded Broca's area, which is involved in language comprehension and sentence formulation. However, of 48 genes related to language processing, 11 had different methylation patterns in Neanderthals compared to modern humans, which could imply modern humans had a greater capacity for language expression. In 1971, cognitive scientist Philip Lieberman reconstructed the Neanderthal vocal tract and concluded it resembled that of a newborn, limiting their range of speech sounds due to a large mouth and small pharyngeal cavity, with no need for a descended larynx. He suggested this limited their ability to produce sounds like ah, e, u, or ga, and ka, although he acknowledged that their speech capacity exceeded that of non-human primates. However, a lack of descended larynx does not necessarily reduce vowel capability. The 1983 discovery of a Neanderthal hyoid bone in the Kibara II skeleton, nearly identical to that of humans, indicates they may have been capable of speech. Additionally, the ancestral Cima de los Huesos hominins had human-like hyoid and ear bones, possibly pointing to an early evolution of the human vocal apparatus, although the hyoid alone does not fully reveal vocal tract structure. Later studies have reconstructed the Neanderthal vocal apparatus as similar to that of modern humans, suggesting a comparable vocal range. In 2015, Lieberman proposed that Neanderthals could use syntactical language, though he believed they were unlikely to master any human dialect. Neanderthals buried their dead differently. Early Homo sapiens and their Neanderthal cousins started burying their dead around the same time and roughly the same place, some 120,000 years ago. This suggests the two species may have had, at least in part, a shared culture at the time. A recent study of ancient burial sites across the Levant region in Western Asia highlights both similarities and differences in burial practices between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Interestingly, the study found that some of these sites predate other known Neanderthal burials in Europe and Homo sapiens burials in Africa, suggesting that the Levant may have been the origin point for early burial traditions. Researchers from Tel Aviv University and the University of Haifa analyzed 17 Neanderthal sites and 15 Homo sapiens sites, discovering evidence of cultural overlap and possibly even competition between the two groups. This finding sheds light on the complex interactions that may have shaped early human social practices. It is hypothesized that the growing frequency of burials by these two populations in Western Asia is linked to the intensified competition for resources and space resulting from the arrival of these populations. Both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens would bury people of any age, though infant deaths were more common with the Neanderthals. Both groups also included a variety of goods with the graves, including small stones, animal bones, or horns. However, Neanderthals tended to bury their dead deeper in caves, whereas Homo sapiens were buried in cave entrances or rock shelters. What's more, Homo sapiens skeletons were usually in something like a fetal position, whereas Neanderthal skeletons were discovered in any one of a variety of arrangements. The differences don't stop there either. Neanderthal burials made greater use of rocks, perhaps as rudimentary gravestones, while Homo sapiens burials featured more decorative items, including ochre and shells that the Neanderthals didn't include. Cult. It was once suggested that cave bear bones, especially skulls, found in certain European caves were deliberately arranged, hinting at an ancient bear cult in which bears were ceremonially hunted and their bones specially placed. This would align with bear-related rituals seen in Arctic hunter-gatherer societies. However, such bone arrangements could also be attributed to natural causes. The idea of a bear cult may have been influenced by theories that totemism was humanity's earliest form of religion, potentially leading to biased interpretations of evidence. Similarly, there was a belief that Neanderthals engaged in ritual killings and cannibalism of their own, using skulls in ceremonial practices. In 1962, Italian paleontologist Alberto Blanc analyzed a skull from Grotta Guattari, Italy, claiming it bore signs of a deliberate blow to the head and intentional cuts for brain access. He likened this to practices of headhunters in Southeast Asia, proposing evidence for a skull cult. However, this interpretation is now widely attributed to scavenging by cave hyenas. While Neanderthals did engage in cannibalism, there is limited evidence to suggest it was ritualistic. In 2019, researchers Stuart, Geraldine, and Clive Finlayson, along with Francisco Guzman, proposed that golden eagles held symbolic significance for Neanderthals, as evidenced by the unusually high rates of modification on golden eagle bones compared to other birds. They suggested a possible sunbird cult, where the golden eagle might have been seen as a symbol of strength. Evidence from Krapina, Croatia, further supports that Neanderthals wore raptor talons as ornaments, potentially even attaching them with string. What happened to the Neanderthals? The extinction of Neanderthals was part of the broader late Pleistocene megafaunal extinction event. Whatever the cause of their extinction, Neanderthals were replaced by modern humans, indicated by near full replacement of Middle Paleolithic Mousterian stone technology with modern human Upper Paleolithic Aurignacian stone technology across Europe from 41,000 to 39,000 years ago. Historically, modern human technology was viewed as vastly superior to that of Neanderthals, with more efficient weaponry and subsistence strategies, and Neanderthals simply went extinct because they could not compete. The discovery of Neanderthal-modern human introgression has caused the resurgence of the multi-regional hypothesis, wherein the present-day genetic makeup of all humans is the result of complex genetic contact among several different populations of humans dispersed across the world. By this model, Neanderthals and other recent archaic humans were simply assimilated into the modern human genome. That is, they were effectively bred out into extinction. The final extinction of Neanderthals aligned with Heinrich Event 4, a time marked by extreme seasonal fluctuations. Similar climate shifts during later Heinrich events are also linked to significant cultural upheavals when European human populations dwindled. This environmental change may have led to regional Neanderthal depopulation, as seen in previous cold periods. However, instead of Neanderthals repopulating these areas, they were replaced by migrating human groups, which contributed to their extinction. In southern Iberia, evidence suggests that Neanderthal populations declined during Heinrich Event 4, coinciding with the spread of Artemisia-dominated desert steppes. Some researchers propose that climate change was the main factor in Neanderthal extinction, as their low population numbers made them highly vulnerable to environmental shifts. Even slight reductions in survival or fertility rates could have hastened their disappearance. However, Neanderthals and their ancestors had survived numerous glacial periods during their long habitation in Europe. Another theory suggests that around 40,000 years ago, as Neanderthal populations were possibly already in decline, the Campanian Ignimbrite eruption in Italy may have delivered the final blow. This eruption caused a 2 to 4 degrees Celsius or 3.6 to 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit temperature drop for a year, and acid rain that persisted for several years. Modern humans may have brought African diseases to Neanderthals, which could have hastened their extinction. Neanderthals' lack of immunity to these unfamiliar diseases, combined with their already small population, may have had a severe impact. Additionally, their low genetic diversity likely meant that fewer Neanderthals would have possessed natural immunity to combat these new infections. However, compared to modern humans, Neanderthals had a similar or higher genetic diversity for 12 major histocompatibility complex genes associated with the adaptive immune system, casting doubt on this model. Low population and inbreeding depression may have caused maladaptive birth defects, which could have contributed to their decline.